Welcome into a Tuesday, December 3rd edition of Daily Faceoff Live, which is presented by Bet365. Download the app today and use promo code NATION, N-A-T-I-O-N. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. It's Daily Faceoff Live. He is Colby Cohen. I'm Frank Sarvalli. Colby, what's going on?
Not a whole lot. There's a lot of things brewing today. We were getting all fired up on Morning Cup of Hockey this morning. We had Carter Hutton join us. We had Arthur Staple joining us. Johnny has been crying in his Cheerios for a number of days now. So things are kind of interesting in the NHL right now, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, including a Four Nations face-off roster announcement on Wednesday. The New York Rangers keep losing. We've got our poll question of the day, which is delivered by Dominion Lending Center. And we'll get to that. If you're in the YouTube chat, you can fire an answer in there as well. But let's start off with those New York Rangers, which you were talking about this morning on Morning Cup of Hockey with Arthur Staple from The Athletic. And man, it's getting ugly right now. And after a 5-1 loss to the New Jersey Devils on Monday night at the Garden, is this rock bottom for New York, or can you see it getting deeper than this?
Well, I do think it is rock bottom. When you lose the Hudson the Battle of the Hudson on home ice, you give up 2 goals early, but the reason I think it's rock bottom, Frank, is because I believe that general manager Chris Drury sort of threw a grenade into the locker room a week or two ago and sort of self-inflicted a lot of the noise around this team, because it's normal for teams to go through slumps. And to me, that's what this is. I do not believe the New York Rangers are a bad team. I don't believe they're the favorite to win the Stanley Cup, but all of the noise about we're going to trade this guy, we're going to trade that guy, publicly talking about shaking it up when a lot of these guys control their own destinies with their contracts and their age and otherwise. So I actually believe there's a lot of miscalculation here from Chris Drury. And now I believe, and you're the guy who would know this better than me, I got to think Peter Laviolette's seat is getting pretty hot pretty quickly.
I think a lot of people thought that it was highly unusual last night that it took so long for Peter Laviolette to come out for his usual post-game media responsibility. Don't think there's anything really to read into that from a coaching perspective. I think they're a team that they're feeling it right now. And, is this rock bottom? I mean, we could debate that. Only the New York Rangers know that for certain. For me, I don't know how they could possibly turn to the coach again. I mean, you saw how short of a run Gerard Gallant had, right? When I look at Peter Laviolette, are his teams typically better in a second year under him? No, statistically they're not. But I can't imagine when you do this, a third time through a different coach, that it's the coach's issue right now. And I totally agree with you that, to me, when looking at the Rangers and their current lot, I do think a big chunk of what they're dealing with is fallout from the memo that Chris Drury sent out last week. When you name not just any 2 players, but 2 heart and soul players, this whole idea of giving your team a jolt, and I'm not saying what he said was inauthentic or anything like that. I truly believe if Chris Drury could make magic happen and make trades, snap his fingers and make a trade today, that he would. But when your players hear about that, today's players are just different. And you didn't just single out, a third line guy. You picked the team's captain, and you also picked a lifelong New York Ranger in Chris Kreider, who's third on an original 6 franchise in all-time goals. Those are 2 pretty significant players to pick out. And I think what we've seen, the malaise that this team's been in, this sort of lifeless, lackluster spell, it kind of all comes back to that, because I think maybe in the end a card was misplayed.
Yeah, Frank. And here's what I will say. And I know we have the coaches room segment, and Jon Goyens, being a coach has lived this life. But when I watched the New York Rangers team yesterday, I look at the lack of details. I look at how guys are super undisciplined, the way that they're forechecking. I look when they're even trying to make conservative plays and get pucks in and deep, get it behind the other team's defensive groups. They're putting it to a place where the goalie can get it. I mean, every high-level coach will tell you, Dumping a puck where a goalie can get it is a turnover. You either got to get it by the goalie, it's got to go soft, it's got to go back ice, whatever. I look at their stick position. I feel like this team is playing with a massive lack of details, and to give
So
up.
is that coaching, or is that the actual players themselves? Because a lot of these guys are in their late 20s, early 30s, and probably aren't changing at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like usually when it's a details thing, it gets pointed at the coaches. Usually when a team's not ready to play, like they weren't last night, and on that first goal where not Panarin goes on an absolute skate, and then Lafreniere goes on a terrible skate, and then Panarin does the same thing, and then all of a sudden they give up that 2-on-1. Like, I don't know, like that normally points at coaching, but the players, you can't fire a whole team, and something's got to change in New York. I just think there's a massive lack of detail with these players, and I think it's festering.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think this Ranger story is really only starting to percolate, because if we know two things, one, this team had expectations, and two, owner Jim Dolan does not tolerate mediocrity, especially for a team that has expectations to win. And I'm sure that there are some fists being pounded on tables today demanding some answers. And this has been, I'd say, about as lifeless or lackluster of a Rangers stretch that we've seen in the last handful of years, and wouldn't be surprised at all to see changes stem from this one way or the other. But that said, let's talk about the New Jersey Devils, because I don't know that we're giving them enough love given the way that they played and looked last night, and also kind of overall this season. I think we've been a little bit shy in talking so much about the Devils, only because, I don't know, if you looked at the standings via points percentage, they haven't been at the very top. But when you look at this team and the way that they produce, what's been most interesting to me this season is the way that they haven't really given much up. You see this graphic here, 5th in the league in goals against per game. Their goaltending has been on point. Their power play has been next level. It's over 45% over the last 9 games. They went 2 for 4 against New York last night. Jack Hughes gets his 9th goal against Igor Shesterkin, and we'll talk about Jack Hughes coming up in garbage time, related to Valley's View and his segment in the first intermission for the New York Rangers broadcast on MSG last night. But what do you make of the Devils? And by the way, I said before the season started, this goaltending tandem, Jacob Markstrom and Jake Allen, would give them a chance to win every single night. It seems like they've finally gotten that part right. Are the New Jersey Devils the team to beat in the Metro, or is it Carolina?
No, I think it is the New Jersey Devils. And I know what everybody's going to say, oh, they play fast. But the reality is they think fast, right? And sure, they've got a lot of straight line speed, and they've got a lot of guys who can hurt you. But you just watch the way that these guys are all connected. You watch the way that they're all in sync. You see the play that Andre Palat makes on that first goal. It's a quick little slip play because he already knows what he's going to do before he gets the puck. And that sends Bratt and Hischier down the ice on a 2-on-1. So everybody loves the term play fast. I think this New Jersey Devils team thinks fast. And you look at the balance in their lineup. Hischier, Hughes, Haula, Dowling. You've got Mercer and Cotter giving you a little depth on your third line. Nason having a bit of a career year up in the top group. Obviously, Timo Meier, time to adjust and be part of this group. Palat is healthy. You know, he struggled with some injuries last year. And then I do think it's important to sort of talk about, you know, Luke Hughes in year 2 and what an effective player he is when he has the puck and his defensive awareness. So I think there are 2 people that deserve a lot of credit here, and that's the GM, the general manager, and Tom Fitzgerald, and the head coach, and Sheldon Keefe, right? Sheldon Keefe and Craig Berube are good hockey coaches that just needed a change of scenes, locker rooms that needed new voices. But these are not guys who are bad coaches. So I think Sheldon Keefe is getting the most out of his group. They play a 5-man offense. Everybody is so involved, and it puts the defensive team back on their heels, wingers that are high in their point coverage, the amount of times that they have to turn their head and look around, that creates more time and space for the team offensively because how everybody's involved. So I really like the way this team's playing. And I'm not going to say they play fast because they do, but they think fast and they think all on the same page. And that's why I do believe they're the team to beat in the Metro.
So how much of that, though, do you give credit to the changes that were made in the offseason? I know you hinted at Tom Fitzgerald and the GM, but yeah, it's on him to make the coaching change. But yes, a healthy Dougie Hamilton helps. But you mentioned Stefan Nason coming back to New Jersey. He's got 13 goals so far this season. It is a skill to play with skilled players. Yeah. I think that's one thing underrated that he has in his arsenal. But what about some of the other additions? Paul Cotter has kind of quieted off after an incredible start. Kovacevic, a guy that was a cast-off from the Montreal Canadiens, he's added to their blue line in a big way. And maybe the scariest part, and Brendan Dillon, he just does Brendan Dillon things. Exactly. He's been so good in the back end and doesn't get nearly enough love. But the amazing part about the Devils is they've got a really, really good up-and-coming prospect in Simone Nemec back in Utica. Like, how exciting is it from that perspective?
And Seamus Casey, right? And
you guys.
Look, Brett Pesce missed some time. He's looking more and more comfortable playing in a new place, playing in a new system. How about the amount of shots that they block, the New Jersey Devils? I'm watching the Ranger power play, block after block after block. That's mentality. That's mindset. That's buy-in. Frank, this is a scary team. If they get good goaltending and they get a good tandem where neither guy gets worn down, I could see them having a deep run this year. I wouldn't have them as my favorite to come out of the East, but I do think that this team, if they continue to get better, they're not going to be a team you want to play come spring.
All right, so let's put this in bigger perspective, though. The New Jersey Devils are just opening the window on a 10-year run to be competitive in the NHL, to win the Stanley Cup.
I agree. I completely agree. Look at the youth. Look at the ages of all their key pieces.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Okay, let's take a quick peek at our poll question of the day, which is delivered by Dominion Lending Center. Mortgage up for renewal? Lock in the best rates and products with Dominion Lending Centers. Visit dominionlending.ca. And you take a quick look at that poll question in our YouTube chat today. Should Anthony Stolarz make Team USA at Four Nations Faceoff? I mean, the numbers tell a story. Do you think he actually makes it? 66% of our group says no.
And I would agree with the group. And honestly, going into today, I thought that it was actually like a ridiculous question. But I'll tell you, I brought Carter Hutton onto Morning Cuppa and I asked him. And he brought up something that really resonated with me that as somebody who never played the position, I never would have thought about. But, you need a guy who's okay being your third goalie, a guy who's probably not going to play much. And if he does have to go in, it's probably a bit of a dumpster fire. And he's been a backup his entire career. And he's been used to situations where you're almost getting fed to the wolves, where you don't play. And then boom, things are going bad. We got to get you in to rest the other guy, right? So in that regard, maybe it is a smart move. Jeremy Swayman hasn't played good hockey this year in Boston. He really hasn't. I think 1 and 2, we know it's going to be Hellebuck with a longer leash and then Ottinger probably right on his heels. Now, if Thatcher Demko's healthy, this isn't even a conversation. But look, I watched Toronto play last night. The guy played really well. Yes, it was against Chicago, but it doesn't matter. They're NHL players. He makes NHL caliber saves. He's big. Probably better for the Maple Leafs if he doesn't make it. He's never played a ton of games and he has had injury problems. But look, before Carter Hutton made the points that he made to me, I thought this was ridiculous. After hearing it, there is an argument to be made.
Yeah, I think there's an argument to be made. I don't know that I'd make it for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. He's never been counted on to be the guy if you actually need him. But being the third goalie, being the 13th forward, being the 7th defenseman, those are conversations that these teams have all been having over the last few weeks. They've been calling around saying, hey, if I pick your guy and he's not playing, how's he going to handle it? And I think that part is certainly important when building a team like this as well. You need guys that aren't going to pout, aren't going to cry if they're not in the lineup, that will just be happy to be there and not be a problem. So I know that teams were taking that into consideration as we got closer to the Four Nations Faceoff roster selection. Those will be announced on Wednesday, thanks to Dominion Lending Centers for our poll question of the day. So let's get a real-time Calder Trophy update. You see Holy Bleep here from Macklin Celebrini. That was his reaction when he learned that he was the NHL Rookie of the Month for November. I know you've been, quietly driving the Macklin Celebrini, or maybe not so quietly. Yeah, not so quietly driving the Macklin Celebrini for Calder train. We're running a little bit behind today, but, just his play to this point, and when you see the continued maturation, the hunger on pucks, he's making things happen for the San Jose Sharks team that is really quite impressive.
Listen, he's drawing the other team's number one center. He's surviving, more than surviving. He's thriving in the faceoff dot for an 18-year-old. All right. He's right around 50%. Obviously, remember, this kid just turned 18 years old. All right. What he's doing without the puck, what he's able to create defensively, how much they can rely on him. I talked to Ryan Warsofsky actually about this yesterday. He's incredible. I mean, this kid is a generational special type of player who, you're right, I'm going to yell and scream because I said he would be a better center than Connor Bedard, and I think he should be on Team Canada. I really do. I think he'd be the perfect guy to bring for Team Canada. Let him be your 13th forward. And right now, I don't think there's a rookie that's in the same realm of the way that he's playing. Not to say Matvei Michkov is not impressive, not to say he's not creating dots down. The kid's been incredible, but I just don't see it that close, in my opinion, as far as who's going to be and who is more impactful.
I think a fair point right now. Matvei Michkov, by the way, 3 overtime winners so far for the Flyers this season.
3 game winners for Macklin Celebrini too, and he's only got 2 points on the power play.
Not in OT though.
I know.
Three pure OT winners for Matvei Michkov.
3 on 3 though. You're talking.
If he gets one more, he'll be the first teenager in NHL history to get 4. So pretty impressive start for him as well. But let's quickly move on to the Montreal Canadiens. Patrik Laine expected to make his season debut tonight after that scary knee injury in the preseason that we thought might keep him out for the entire year. He's rehabbed back at the beginning of December. Great news for a struggling Montreal Canadiens team. But quickly, Colby, what are proper expectations for a guy who's basically barely played hockey in 2 seasons?
They're low. Honestly, I think the rest of this year is about finding his legs. I mean, this is a guy who hasn't played more than 56 games since 2020. He's not played a lot of hockey over the last number of years. He's coming back from a big injury. He's playing on a team that isn't a great team. Listen, I think if he can come in this year and score 15 goals the rest of the way, and maybe put up another 15 or 20 assists, and you can get 35 to 40 points maybe out of him, I think that's would be great. But my expectations are this year is basically find your legs, get through a year, feel good physically, feel good mentally, and then hopefully next year try to get back to the level that you've been.
My whole goal for Patrik Laine, and I think a proper goal to set, not even make it numbers based, just want to see him enjoy the game again. I want to see some joy for a guy that's obviously struggled physically and has been very public about his struggle mentally. Want to see him have some joy on the ice again. I think that would be a big step forward, and then the rest of the numbers will come after that. But speaking of the Montreal Canadiens, let's get to the coach's room and a guy who sees them on a daily basis, their TSN 690 analyst, Jon Goyens, with another edition of the coach's room. That's right. This is the coach's room, and it is presented by Fountain Tire. You and your family's safety is important. They'll treat your vehicle like it's their vehicle at Fountain Tire. And if you need new tires, or maybe your engine has a little rattle, stop into Fountain Tire and they'll sort you out. And right now, you can save up to $225 on a set of 4 select tires, including Goodyear, until December 14th. Plus, save $50 or more on any service of $150. Some restrictions apply. Stop into Fountain Tire or make an appointment. Check out fountaintire.com. That's right. This is the coach's room. And today we are focusing on the St. Louis Blues, who have looked like, well, a little bit of a different team since Jim Montgomery has taken over. So, John, when you take a look at this Blues team, what stands out to you the most?
Well, it's knowing Monty and how he wants to coach and how he wants his teams to play. It was very similar to the roster they had last year in Boston. They wanted to play a lot of half-court hockey, but the reality is areas that he's going to focus on defensively are loose puck recoveries and closing off time and space, especially in the D zone quickly, so that then their transition game can improve. And then through the neutral zone will be a lot of the counterattacks that they can create by bumping pucks up quickly. They're processing the game at a quicker pace and jumping that second D up in the rush more. So I think instead of looking in the rearview mirror at what it was like before Monty, let's just focus on the clips going forward. What's it going to be like with Monty? And the first area I wanted to focus on was really more the defensive side of the game.
Yeah, so let's fire those up, Pat, and take a peek at the defensive side of the game for the St. Louis Blues. What areas do you think will be tackled first as they sit 28th in goals against?
Well, I think there's certain automatics, like not chasing behind the net until you protect both posts. 5 guys in the picture a ton of times, and just, initially being on top of players as quickly as possible. Loose puck recoveries, I talked about. Get a loose puck, move it up the ice, boom, that ignites their transition. They're going to be a lot better. Watch again, that sweeping poke check, close the guy in the corner and look, 5 guys in the picture, and then they could jump on that loose puck. They could poke pucks into space. Again, loose puck, kind of a 50-50. They don't get to it right away, but they get to that second opportunity, and automatically it's up the wall. Cut down. They're near the bottom of the league in on-man rushes. Cut down on on-man rushes, create a 2 versus 3. Then teams can't do crisscrosses. Again, 5 guys in the pit. You deny the slot when you can shrink the D zone, and that will cut down on goals against. Again, look at this handoff by these 2D. They hand off. There's no confusion, and boom, it's up the ice. And watch, you had Suter just be available and jump in the rush. Again, Joseph cuts it off. Sad cuts it off. 5 guys in the pick. Nobody cheating. Multiple options. And then boom, that ignites the transition. Close space, be together, great sticks.
So let's go to the other side of the puck then, John, because obviously there's more to hockey than defense. And I think Monty is known as a high-end offensive coach, but I do know that he talks about wanting to have a good offense by shutting teams down defensively. And this team has plenty of offensive threats. They have guys up front. They've got guys on the back end. But what would you say from a strategy standpoint, we can look for with this team that they can produce more offense without sacrificing defense?
Well, you mentioned in one of the earlier segments about, everybody wants to play fast, thinking the game fast. It's processing the game fast. Can I up it? Great. If I can't, I got to use my partner. And it's those quick bumps and underhandling pucks so that you could jump up. And it truly is a 4- and 5-man rush often enough. So let's fire up the clips and you'll see a ton of examples. Watch Broberg right here. He's the one that goes D to D, and then he jumps in the middle right away. And so guys can change, and he's up in the rush, and it's not a threatening shot, but they're up the ice. We got a change by Philly. Falk's like, I'm gone, and I'm driving the net. I'm going to hunt for rebounds. Guys are going to cover. The other part, some D to Ds and middle breakouts. Middle breakout in this case beats 3 players. They're up the ice, little drop, give and go, and they create a scoring chance. They reload, steal the puck from Jersey. The other part on entries, delay deep. When you delay deep, you could establish net front, and you can jump 4 guys in the rush. Again, from D zone up the ice as quickly as possible. They're good at slashing and finding holes. Now let's look at again from the D zone deep. Watch Broberg. If he doesn't jump, they're just chipping it up the wall. They don't have possession on this entry. And this is a recurring thing. The other part, 4 guys reload right away. The moment they lose possession, they don't cheat themselves. Now, first guy in the forecheck sets the pace for F2. And look, Shen was so far behind Trouba. And then a smart guy like Kyrou finds a pocket of space. He's defended, and then he pops out. Again, quick transition. When you can up it, it doesn't have to be a useless stretch fast. Maybe you'll trip a guy on the way to a quick 9-second goal. But it's options. There can't be just one option. You see how quickly the puck exchanged hands. Now watch, that was Parayko that started this in the slot. Watch him wander the zone, right? They're not cheating, 4 guys low. And now the reintroduction of that 1-3-1 O-zone play that St. Louis played when Monty was an assistant coach, that Boston played when Monty was a head coach during their most offensive moments. Again, find the pocket of space. Holloway gets in there, and you get that 1-3-1. 1-3-1s will create big pockets of space in the slot. If that's over defended, then your flanks will open up as well.
John, to not oversimplify this, but is this a more fun way to play?
100%. I mean, just ask Colby as a defenseman, if you feel like you got shackles on your ankles because you're not considered an offensive guy, then you don't feel like you're part of the play. So you up the puck, you chip it, it gets boring, and the enthusiasm gets drained right out of your body, whether it be as a third, fourth line player or as a defenseman.
Yeah, it just feels like the players in St. Louis now just a little bit lighter on their skates. I don't know if you can tell that, if it's just a body language thing, but it looks to me like they're having a bit more fun. That's another fantastic edition of the Coach's Room. He's former QMJHL head coach Jon Goyens. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Have a good one, guys.
All right, that brings us to our Ask DFO inbox question of the day. Thanks to Clinton for firing this into the chat. He says, will Carolina try to get themselves into a better goalie situation? Who's available and who's worth trying to grab? So with that comes some news today, Colby. Pyotr Kochetkov is expected to return to the lineup tonight for the Canes against the Kraken after being out for the last 10 or 12 days or so with a concussion. How would you answer that question?
Oh, man. That's why we bring Carter Hutton onto our show. Look, I think a guy like Kochetkov has shown flashes, but I still think there's a lot of inconsistencies in goal there. I think we've seen, I forget the terminology that I've heard and I've seen talked about, but how many guys have they now gone through in the last couple of years? They've used Yaniv Peretz. They've had to put Anderson on the IR. Doesn't everybody want to go out and solidify their goaltending situation,
yeah, but
Frank?
Not everyone wants to spend, and I don't think the Hurricanes want to spend. That's why I'll give you one name, Clinton, since you asked, and I'd go and get Dan Vladar from Calgary. They're ready and willing to move on from Vladar if they get the right return. I think they're asking for a second. I think they would probably take a third when push comes to shove, either that or they extend him. I don't think he's going to cost a lot. He's big. His numbers have been good, and he looks a lot better coming off of that offseason surgery. It looks like his mobility is back. That'd be one guy. If you have someone to pick from between Kochetkov, Anderson, you throw Vladar in the mix, God forbid if you needed him, Spencer Martin, like that's 4 pretty decent options for a team that can really just kind of ride the hot hand. Let's move on to our daily bets today, and that is brought to you by, of course, Bet365. The entire Daily Faceoff live show is a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today and use promo code NATION. That's NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 2 simple plays for you today. I've got the Florida Panthers on the puck line, plus 140 to win. You're always counting on the empty netter, but I think the Florida Panthers are significantly better than the Pittsburgh Penguins, even though Pittsburgh has played a little bit better of late. I'm going to say Panthers take that one. And then the other one that I had was the Boston Bruins and Detroit Red Wings under 6. We know that it's been a little bit, even though the numbers don't say so, it feels like at least score-wise a little bit lower event for the Bruins since they made their coaching change with Joe Sacco. Wings aren't a team that's scoring a ton, under 6 in Bruins. Red Wings. And Colby, that brings us to garbage time, which I'm going to need you to unpack this and explain this to me. On the MSG broadcast, Valley View, Steve Valiquette had an interesting thing to say about Jack Hughes. Let's roll the clip, Pat.
2 breakaways in the period, and this is the one I don't like. I don't like that because Hughes set out to embarrass Shesterkin there by slowing down and going to one hand. And that should send a shockwave to everybody on the bench. I know in my day that Colt Noor would have been hanging over the bench, banging his stick, saying, I'm coming after you, because you tried to embarrass us. And that's blatant disrespect. And
So let's just start with this, Frank. Remember something. This is first off, Valiquette is one of the best studio analysts there is in the National Hockey League. So let's just start there. His breakdowns are incredible. He's on a home show that just so happens to get picked up by NHL Network, which is one of the reasons that this is really blown up so much, right? So when
it's also social media, right? Like you say anything today, it doesn't matter where you say it, someone's finding it.
But I'm just saying, when you're on a home show, you're talking to your home fans, right? Like when you have your home fans and your team stinks, your fans want you to be emotional. They want you to stir the pot. They want you to play to the crowd. These guys are trying to be entertaining. So I think there was an element of that. But I also, look, I disagree with what he said. Instagram hockey, like for Jack Hughes, that's a hockey play. A Michigan is a hockey play. It's not Instagram hockey anymore. It's how these guys play and think the game. It's also the way Hughes scored against Shesterkin in the Garden in the playoffs 2 years prior. So I wasn't bothered by the play whatsoever. I kind of laughed at what Valley said. Like I said, I think he was playing to the home crowd. I do think in his day, yeah, you do that and somebody was going to come after you. Somebody was going to come looking for you. He's also a goalie. Goalies are sensitive. They don't like when guys do what they perceive as hot dog types of moves. But again, I think this was nothing more than a hometown guy playing to a hometown crowd. For the record, I love the New York Ranger broadcast. Not a Rangers fan, not from New York. Love Sam Rosen. Love when Kenny Albert fits in. Micheletti, Valiquette, Giannone. They do a good job. So it was more funny to me than anything, Frank.
I was just confused because I just didn't like. I could watch that clip 100 times and not see it that way. But again,
did you see what Jack Hughes said in the post game? Johnny,
yeah, he said, what does that even mean? He said, "Help!" I just don't understand it. So, and even his,
I think that was a genuine comment from him because to him, the Forsberg is no longer a hot shot type of play.
No.
It's just a play.
It's what he pulls off on the routine, on the regular.
But then I'll give the Devils social media team credit because if you saw their tweet, they had him say Instagram hockey on a loop while showing all of the highlights from the game. So give the Devils social media credit. I think they did a nice job with that.
So well done. Well said by you. That's a wrap on today's Daily Faceoff Live. Thanks a lot for joining us. If you were in the chat, you were awesome. Please hit like, hit subscribe, do us a favor and help us with that pesky YouTube algorithm. We'll see you tomorrow, 12 noon. Tyler Yaremchuk will be back, and I'll be on my way home from sunny California and be back in the home studio on Thursday. Talk to you then. Have a great one. Thanks a lot for joining us.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content. From daily live shows with Frank Saravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.